everyone. PC here, and welcome to the April edition of the Consumer Concert Artistry, where we're privileged to look at music through the eyes of the composer. I am so excited to share a conversation today with my good friend, Julie Giroux. It would take more than the 20 minutes we have to read all of her accolades, but there are two things that I want you to know about Julie. First of all, other than the fact that for years she's written magnificent pieces for wind band, she is quite the iconoclast. She shattered the glass ceiling by being not only the youngest, but the first female to ever win an Emmy Award. And when you study Julie's works, it's a masterclass in compositional craft. But unless you know Julie personally, you don't know that she is one of the most caring and generous people in the compositional field. So Julie, thank you so much. And Piper, for sharing time with us today. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Piper, say hi. No, say hi to Paula. She says no.
Yeah, that's enough of that. So as we discussed, there we go. I was really lucky. I got to perform Burning the Wicker Man with the Illinois All-State Band. And then last weekend at the American Bandmasters Conference, Kevin Sedetall's wonderful Michigan State Band, I was able to conduct it, and it absolutely brought the house down. And I know this piece is going to get a lot of play, so I thought, with your permission, we'd talk about that today. And Burning the Wicker Man is such an exciting piece. And if our directors do due diligence, that is that they study the piece before they stand on the podium and sight read it, we're just opening the score. Julie, what do you want us to see? What do you want us to hear? What were you thinking about when you composed this piece?
Well, what I typically do whenever I'm writing a piece, I do a lot of research. And I've always been fascinated with the tradition of burning the wicker man. And you know, I came at it from the direction that most of us come at it from, which is the Burning Man celebrations, which are all over Earth, really. And they take on a different form depending on what country. I mean, I know here when we have ours, I think clothing is optional. I understand that's the way that one goes. So let's not share that with the students. But I know, right? So it is, but when I started to do, and I was really going to do a piece that to me was just fire, right? I mean, it's Burning the Wicker Man, and it's just a way of starting off a fresh new year. And so it's a celebration of life. And so you burn a wicker man now to cleanse yourself of the past and to move forward. But as I started, and I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to write about. But as I started to research it and where the festival really came from, it took on a much darker turn. And after, it's kind of like that saying, you can once you see something, you can't unsee it. And once I had read, the Druids, 5-6 centuries ago would put human beings in wicker cages and obviously burn them alive. So it was, after you come to that and you go, oh my God, I'm glad, it was interesting to see the way it processed over the decades and to now. But once I started to think of that, obviously the Wicker Man took a much darker turn musically, because I just thought it was fun. And in some ways, it almost has a Halloween feel to it. And I like that aspect because its history is very scary. So basically, it's just a piece that shouldn't sit stagnant. It should always be pushing forward. And just like fire, it shouldn't just stay the same. It's constantly in motion. And I tried to write that motion into the piece.
Where'd you come up with the little, it's almost like a mischievous Irish jig that's the first theme?
Right. Well, that's why that comes from that Druid, reading about the Druids. And then, of course, they evolved too over the years, but just particularly in their ceremony. And, I guess there are Druids today, which I didn't know, but I read about them too. So yes. And it was a big Celtic background in the Druids, big Scottish and Irish background.
Right. I noticed that those of us who study your score notice how you build tension by adding instruments. And there's a section over at 48 where you start out and it's just with the third and fourth horns, and then you add the first and second horns, and then you add the second, and so on and so forth. So it builds organically without really anybody having to do much but start pushing that forward. And the
Right.
same thing with your accelerando at the end, which was really fun to push that
Yeah.
just as much as you can. You know, the interesting thing that I found, because I did a little research too, is that some historians tell us that the Druids didn't actually burn people alive because, you know, they didn't have a written history.
Right.
So the people who wrote about it, one of the people who wrote about it was Julius Caesar, who didn't like the Druids at all. He didn't like the Celts. And
Yes.
so, you know, I think in modern times, that's an object lesson on don't believe every crazy whack job theory that you hear.
That's true. That's true. And when I did the research, you know, it to me, it was almost, again, it was kind of like the Salem witchcraft thing. You know, it was so blown out of proportion as far as what actually happened. And you know, I don't know. I did pretty in-depth history, and it was kind of hard to decipher if they really did burn people alive or just wicker humans, you know,
Mhm.
as far as just it was really hard. I don't think I ever really came to a conclusion because there were so many conflicting stories. But you know, that's I think that's the same in music. You know, I'm sure a lot of things we say about music today, the composer, if he was here, it would go, no, 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 that's not what it's about. So, you know, it's that kind of thing, is passing down history. But of course, that's what makes, to me, that's what makes music the art form that it is, which is if it was only supposed to go the way the composer wanted it to go, then we would just basically just play it once, record it, and then burn the paper because we don't need to do it again. That's how it goes. But you know, that's not the business or the job that we're in. Our job is to take the music and build what we want with it. So we take that blueprint, but you know, that's the best thing about music, is once you hear music, you're not thinking about the composer's story or the program notes anymore. You immediately put your own reflection, your own emotions, your own, you know, if it's a beautiful love theme, you're thinking about who you love. You don't care who the composer was loving at that time, especially if it's a dog like this one. It is kind of, you know, it's like, I know now I hurt her feelings, but it's that kind of, I that's what makes our job so not a job. You know, it is music always just reaches right into you and pulls out your own experiences and your own emotions. And that's me, that's what the beauty of the field that we're in. And Wicker Man is that way. People are going to hear that theme and they're going to immediately, whatever they experience, if that scares them or if it's a scary movie, or God forbid they saw the movie with Nicolas Cage called Burning the Wicker Man, which was a horror movie.
Mm.
So I think they try to burn him in the end. And so it's, you know, I don't know what people are going to think. I do know that it does come across as, like you've already pointed out, Irish and fun. I mean, it's just a fun piece.
Well, and the fact that you talk about celebrating life, because for me, when I was working with a piece with young people who just loved it, I mean, you know, and it gets more and more exciting, and to bring that to life, the piece just really, really sparkles. And I like the way you change from clarinet to low reeds and then add the piccolo. And again, we really need to study this from an orchestration standpoint, because the way you build tension, and then that one little section that has a release in the 3/2 section, and that and has a little subtle build, is a master class as well. So, you know, thank you so much for that, Julie. And I can't wait for more people to play it. And when you hear Kevin's recording, I think you're going to be really, really pleased. I also
Oh,
wanted to talk a bit about the other side of what you do, because I said you're a very caring person and you're also incredibly generous. You wrote a piece about gun violence, and it's offered free and in perpetuity. And I'm sure that not everyone knows about that. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess, you know, just like everybody else, every time you read about a shooting, you know, it just becomes, you become sort of numb to it.
Mhm.
And I was starting to get numb to it. And I thought, well, I'm going to write a piece about it. And I wanted it to reach as many people as possible. So in a way, the piece is very simplistic because I knew I wanted people to be able to sing it if they wanted to sing it, and I also knew that it would be great if I made it a melody that by the time I got to the end of it, that they could easily grasp, but that the audience could sing along. So I've done quite a few performances in every way imaginable, with the choir half on the stage and half out in the audience, all of them out in the audience. I mean, some of them in the aisles. I think at ABA we did it with people in the aisle. I think it was Rick Group's Auburn group.
Right.
And you know, it's a really emotional experience, and I especially the lyrics. The lyrics are really hard to read and not react to, I think.
So
And
how do people find it?
it's on my website, and it is absolutely free forever. And it actually took more lawyers and more time to lay out the fact that it needed to be free forever than any other piece I've ever had to do, because it's kind of that thing. People think it's like, to me, it's like the diabetes drug. The people that developed it wanted it to be free for everybody, and then soon as big pharmaceuticals got a hold of it, they started charging whatever. I obviously it's not on that scale of things, but I didn't want that to happen ever. When I'm not here, I don't want people to go, well, now she, you know, I just didn't want that. So it took a lot of paperwork to be sure that it would be free forever and no one could just do that. So it's on my website. You can do it with choir piano, with choir and band, choir and orchestra. It is however you want to do the combinations, and they're all there free to download on my website. So hopefully uh, hopefully people will find it and utilize it.
And you know, it's a great collaborative effort between a band and a choir. But
Oh,
I also heard a performance where the band sang.
yes,
Some of the
yes.
kids in the band sang. I mean, so there are all those opportunities, and it is a beautiful piece. And again, it talks, music is not about playing notes, and your music reaches a place emotionally where I think that we all need to go with that piece. And then there's the big green ball, blue ball, green. What color?
The blue marble, yeah,
Marble.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Blue marble.
I just
Yeah,
keep on thinking
fine.
about, and I got to hear the premiere of that at TBA, and it is remarkable, and it really speaks to taking care of this precious earth. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it has been my dream ever since I started writing for band, because, you know, I started out in band, and then once I started writing jingles in college, it was, um, I took more of a commercial turn, and then obviously, and then once Bill Connie hired me, once Bill hired me, then it was all orchestral,
Mhm.
uh, and and films, and then video games after that. But it was kind of, for me, a dream to be able to play music to a film with band and not need a click track. So soon as I heard about that software, I just knew I wanted to do it. And of course, this was during COVID. So also, that symphony, I was slated to write something else. But after being home for a year and playing video games and eating Cheetos, I said, well, which is literally what I did for a year. I thought, I really, it was so dark and it was so oppressive to all of us, especially musicians, you know, not being able to do what I think, what we feel like we were put on earth to do, and not be able to do it was awful. So I wanted to remind people how beautiful our world is, that this is just temporary, but that it probably was because of us that it happened, and was because of us that we had to endure it and try and find a cure. But it was just vital to me to just go, this is earth and look how beautiful it is.
Mhm.
And And then I kind of took it like the first, so you have 3 movements, and that's why everybody it confuses the title, because it's called The Blue Marble, but the first movement is called The Big Blue Marble. So nobody knows what the piece is called. And so it becomes that, and I get it confused, and so so the first movement to me was like an introduction to somebody that wasn't from Earth, to say, if you watch this 6 minutes of music, it's an introduction to what this planet is about. So there is everything in there, it's cultures, and it's places and countries, and the different religions. And so it just goes through a bunch of things in a very quick manner. And it's like, here, this is Earth. And then the second movement, I wanted to, in my research, because I did so much research about Earth during this, I learned so much about Earth I never knew. And it was just so incredible. But, the 2 things that make this planet work, and if one of them goes, this planet won't work anymore, is the ocean and our rainforests. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up going rainforest because you can get footage of the rainforest fairly easily, or I could even shoot footage of it myself or friends, but it was underwater. No, that's very difficult. And it would have been a huge budget to try and film anything underwater, more or less all from all over Earth. So I went with the rainforest, and then once I got involved in it and the sounds of the rainforest, I thought, man, it would be so cool to like have a concert in the rainforest with those sounds going on. And so that's what I did. So the second movement, you are hearing the rainforest the entire time. And I have, from the recordings, I have a list of the 200 and something animals and birds and insects that were heard on in that 1 second movement. It's incredible. And it's really, really fun to have that in stereo and to be playing that. And then the last movement is, then again, we're back to here's Earth. And then I really did want to have commentary on what's terrible, the violence, the and not just human violence, but the just nature's violence. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of that. And then of course the middle section is all things baby, all things young, our children and offspring and animals and fish and humans, and then you absolutely go out in a positive. Then then the last third is how much we've moved forward as a species in the past 200 years. It's insane, the level of speed. And some of the scientist stuff that I was reading, it was like that we have progressed more in the past 20 years than hundreds of years. And so it was I wanted to show that in the last part of it. And it was just a blast. But I didn't know if people would do it. I didn't know if they'd want to go through all of that, because you have to learn the software. It's got a very short learning curve. Not for me, of course, but for a 5th grader, they could learn the software in 30 minutes. Me, I think it's more of an hour, but it's wonderful. It's just absolutely fun. And it was reverse engineered, just like Fantasia. So mm-hmm. The music was written first, and then the film was cut to the music.
Oh man. Well, Julie, it's really a powerful piece. Is there a YouTube version of it that people can watch, or?
It's on my website. Yes. It's up there.
Good.
It's up there.
I've seen it, but I couldn't remember whether you sent it to me or whether it was on your website. So, and as I said, we could talk for hours because your mind is so fascinating and the things you've contributed are so great. But I really appreciate you spending time with us. And I hope when we latch onto your latest piece that you'll come back and share that with us too. And thank you for allowing us to spend some time with Piper. I think
She's right there.
I think everybody knows that anybody that loves dogs has to be a great person. And Julie, thank you so much.
You're really very welcome, Paula.
I remember the first one 25 plus years ago. It was 21 people in the Ramada Inn in Elkhart, Indiana. Wow.
CSI to me is like going and having family time with some of your best friends. Even though your first time, you may not know anybody, but when you leave, you know everybody.
If when school's out, you sort of have time to do it, You have the time. And also, it's not expensive. And that's another way that our servant leadership is expressed. We're saying, come on, come join us. It's an elite group that's not elite.
If you want an opportunity to truly deepen your practice, to truly think about what you're bringing to the stage and think about how we can get better at it, which is, I think, in the heart, what do we want? For the good of our students, for the good of ourselves, for the good of our longevity in the profession, CSI is much more than that booster shot. CSI is that salve that's going to shore us up.
I tell everybody it is a must do. That if you enjoy going to your state conference, that's great. This is like your state conference on steroids. It is so tailor-made for the people who attend that you just have to do it.
The intimacy of CSI is unmatched. Small groups, 20, 25 in a group, and with the clinician, it's highly interactive, conversational. The growth and learning doesn't happen one directional, it's multi-directional stuff. And it's not just the clinics, it's afterwards, it's in between, it's the meals, it's the sharing of stories with each other. And so the engagement is at an incredibly high level, and every person is valued and treated like royalty at CSI.
When you step on the campus at Bethel, you suddenly go, wow. Yes, it's a small world, and there's people from all over the place. But it's a family, and you have literally band gods there that are doing presentations, and they come and sit down and have dinner with you and truly want to talk with you and chat with you and know really what's going on.